Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Center for Research Libraries webinar on agriculture resources. We're so glad that you're able to join us for today's event. My name is Gwen Einat. I'm the Communications Specialist here at CRL. You've probably seen my name at the bottom of a lot of emails. And before we begin, we just have a few housekeeping rules to mention. If you have any technical difficulties during the presentation with either the audio or the video, please submit through the online chat if you're still able to do that. You can also call the CRL main number at 800-621-6044. We have somebody standing by to take your calls in case that happens. I want you to know that your phone has been muted on entry. We do this to everyone, and we do it to eliminate any background noise that could come through all the open phone lines. We are recording this presentation, so we want to keep it as clean as possible. So we ask that your phones stay muted throughout this presentation. Our online chat is available throughout the entire presentation for you to submit questions. So if something occurs to you while you're listening to one of our presenters, submit the question. We'll address all of them. We have a Q&A session at the end, so if we don't answer your question right away, do not worry. Every question will be addressed at the end, as many as we have time for. So just really briefly, in case you are new to CRL, the Center for Research Libraries is a consortium of university, college, and independent research libraries of all sizes. We were founded in 1949. The CRL community includes academic libraries at major research universities like Harvard and Yale, and four-year colleges such as Oberlin. CRL also includes independent, non-academic institutions such as the New York Public Library and the Newberry Library. We also have some new members that have joined recently in this fiscal year. We're glad to welcome the Chicago Botanic Garden today's webinar, and obviously connected to agriculture. Most of the 267 CRL libraries are located in the U.S. We also have 29 Canadian libraries, and we also include the University of Hong Kong. Now, CRL efforts over these 6 decades have generated a collection of primary source materials the size of a major university library, with 5 million traditional and digital items. We acquire and preserve newspapers, journals, documents, archives, and other traditional and digital resources from a global network of sources. We're also working hard to help libraries transition into the 21st century from traditional storage to digital. So probably hear a lot of talk about that. But let's get started with today's presentation on agriculture resources. Our presenters today are both from CRL. Amy Wood is our Director of Technical Services, and she's also the Project Director of 2 IMLS leadership grants, Print Archiving by Domain, and the ICON Global Newspaper Directory. She's been with CRL since 2002. Prior to that, she worked as a cataloger on the Chicago Daily News Digitization and Cataloging Project at the Chicago History Museum. Just an aside, I worked there with her as well. And at Ball State University in Muncie, Indiana. Patricia Finney started at CRL as a student assistant 38 years ago. She's shaking her head. She is now head of Stack Management Department, and I think it's fair to say I don't know anyone who knows as much about the CRL collection as Patricia. So really looking forward to hearing the resources that she will describe that we have in agriculture. So thank you, and I will turn this over to Amy.
Good afternoon. I just want to reiterate what Gwen said and how pleased we are to have the opportunity to talk with you about CRL's collection and activities in the domain of agriculture. Historical collections in agriculture are paradoxically at risk and in demand. At risk from age and quality of material, and pressure to divest of collections to claim space for more immediate library needs. They're also in demand from a growing interest in use of the material by scholars in the humanities and social sciences. And although CRL has been committed to the preservation and access to this material since its beginning, we know that the effort to ensure this material lives on, that this material lives on, must be a collaborative effort between CRL and its members, to whom this material is central to their mission. And this webinar is our chance to give you an overview of CRL's agriculture collection and an update on CRL's IMLS-funded project, Print Archiving by Domain. So, as I said, since since its beginning, CRL has preserved and acquired agricultural-related material. Most of it is foreign and rarely held material. CRL has strengths in plant and animal culture, and one can find a great deal of statistical and administrative data in our area studies and government documents holdings. And we have about 120 countries represented in the collection. The largest group of materials from Germany, Russia, India, Sweden, and Japan. And now to give you a much deeper look at the collection, I'll turn it over to Patricia Finney.
Hi there. Today I will make an introduction to and summary of the Center's holdings in the subject area of agriculture, which include many disciplines and include publications from all over the world. First of all, though, I wanted to do a bit of housekeeping. In order to make this large collection better understandable, I have for this talk grouped and will discuss the collection into two huge categories, those being serials and monographs, and then divided those two categories into two divisions each, those being U.S. publications and non-U.S. publications. So I will discuss serials U.S. and non-U.S., then monographs U.S. and non-U.S. At this time, I also wish to include a bit of information on the formation of the CRL collection. The CRL collection has been built through deposit of the membership, specific projects, and direct acquisition. All of these methodologies of collection are present in the categories which I have constructed. Therefore, rather than repeat the same information several times, I will explain the predominant methods of collecting here and then refer to them appropriately later. First of all, there is legacy deposit. Legacy deposit of the members, occurred primarily from 1949 through 1970. These are original paper collections deposited by member libraries. They are primarily serials, but include some monographs. The founding members were primarily Big Ten schools, large land-grant institutions with significant programs in agriculture. Deposits are the core of all paper collections at CRL, regardless of subject. Deposits were made for many reasons, the most common being that the material was seen to be little used. The period of publication for the majority of these materials is primarily from 1850 through 1950. In the late 1950s, the Center began to acquire materials by means other than deposit. There are two large programs which will be referred to repeatedly in this talk. They are, first of all, the old term PL 480, Public Law 480. This program has had a lot of names. The first one was PL 480, then Special Foreign Currency Program, then National Program for Acquisitions and Cataloging, now Library of Congress Cooperative Acquisition Program. Instituted in 1962 as an amendment to the Agricultural Trade Development and Assistance Act of 1954, Public Law 480, by which countries could purchase U.S. agricultural commodities with their own currencies, and those currencies could then be used to purchase serials, government documents, and monographs for deposit in U.S. research libraries, of which CRL was in many cases the first library on the list for deposit after the Library of Congress. Agriculture is one of the subject areas to which CRL subscribed. Materials were also acquired on microfilm in this project, in addition to paper. The other large acquisition program, which I'm going to talk about, is an exchange with the Russian Academy of Sciences. This exchange included publications from the Moscow headquarters and from all other branches. This was an exchange agreement for serials and monographs started in 1958, in which agriculture was included in the scope of subjects acquired. A significant collection of the publications of the Academy from the late 18th century through 1956 was also acquired through deposit and in periods of détente. Okay, so I will begin to talk about serials. First of all, I got one little housekeeping thing left to say. Unless stated otherwise, all holdings within the following topics have individual records in the CRL catalog, and serials having issue-specific holding statements. Okay, so now we're going to talk about serials, agriculture, United States. We have legacy serials, those deposited paper serials. Agriculture is included in these, and there's a substantial number of those serials held by CRL. Around 1956, we started to subscribe to serials. The serials which we subscribed to were not widely held, but some agricultural titles were included. The center has a substantial collection of microfilm. In this collection, there are reprint sets. The reprint set of note that I wanted to talk about right here is the American Periodical Series, and that has a great number of serials on agriculture in it. We have all of the film of that American Periodical Series. Digital. Recently, a project called APCRL, a cooperative project with ProQuest, to digitize a substantial number of legacy serials, of which several were in the field of agriculture, has concluded. A list of the titles digitized and description of the project can be found in the CRL publication Focus, summer of 2012. I kind of forgot to tell you that a number of these are agricultural, and that's what's in the list in Focus. Sorry, I got a little off base. All right, that brings us to governmental documents. Remember, we're still in the U.S. section. Governmental documents, United States. U.S. federal depository documents are excluded from the CRL collection. We have never been a U.S. federal depository library. We do, however, have a collection of U.S. state documents through 1950 for all of the states and territories of the United States. Agriculture was excluded from this collection due to a high probability of duplication. The only time that agricultural material is held within this collection is if it was issued in combined form with an agency that was not agriculture. There is a description of the collection on the CRL website. This collection was entirely deposited by the members. Then I wanted to talk about the college and university course catalogs. The reason I wanted to talk about this is because it's a comprehensive collection which would include course descriptions in agriculture. The collection includes institutions for women, African Americans, Native Americans, ethnic and religious groups. There is a description of the collection and a list of the institution represented in the collection on the CRL web. This collection also was entirely deposited by the members. Okay, still in serials, we're going to go to agriculture, non-US. Okay. non-U.S. agricultural cereals, there is the same legacy deposited type paper cereal that we talked about before. The areas of strength are Western Europe, Canada, and Latin America. Then, around 1956, we started to subscribe to cereals and subscribed to titles which were not widely held, but which included some agricultural titles. Then there is the PL 480 program. The PL 480 program included cereals, and that is from South and Southeast Asia, with a little bit of Israel, Poland, and Yugoslavia added in. Then there is the Russian Academy of Science exchange, which also included cereals on agriculture. Those are the major cereal areas in agriculture. Government documents, non-U.S. Government documents, non-U.S. Legacy cereals. Most of these are agency reports. Some are topical. The strengths of the collection are from Canada, Western Europe, and Latin America. The dates of these materials are primarily from 1880 through 1950. They were all deposited. Then we come back to PL 480. PL 480 government documents, non-U.S. South, Southeast Asia, a little bit of Israel, Poland, and Yugoslavia. The documents contain a great deal of material on agriculture, especially from India. Okay, that is cereals. Monographs. Monographs, we have legacy deposited monographs, eclectic in subject area, including some materials on agriculture. Microfilm, we have reprint sets, which include monographs. The one that comes to mind very quickly is American Culture Series, but there are several others, and those monographs, some of those monographs are on the subject of agriculture. We have a collection on microfilm of agricultural censuses issued by the states of the United States. This collection is described also with a list of titles held in the publication Focus, Summer 2012. That collection was acquired through direct acquisition and through our demand purchase program. We're still on monographs, U.S., last subject, textbooks. We have an extensive collection of textbooks, U.S. imprint, K through 12th grade, dating from 1800 through 1980. There is a section on agriculture in this collection. That section has been fully cataloged. The collection is in the process of being cataloged at this point, but agriculture has been cataloged, and all materials were deposited by the members. Okay, monographs, non-U.S. agriculture. Again, a legacy, eclectic, deposited collection of here and there monographs, mostly from Canada, Western Europe, and Latin America. In direct acquisition, starting around 1956, is the PL 480 program, which contributed not only serials and government documents, but monographs from South and Southeast Asia, a little bit of Israel, Poland, and Yugoslavia. and this included a great deal of agricultural census, especially from India. The Russian Academy of Sciences exchange also included monographs, there's a lot of them, and they include agriculture within their subjects. The final, I saved a big one for last, is the dissertation collection. The center has a very large, comprehensive collection of non-US, non-Canadian PhD level dissertations. In those dissertations are works concerning agriculture. This collection was received at the center through deposit, through direct acquisition, and through our demand purchase program. The last thing I wanted to talk about, I wanted to put a little plug in for newspapers. The center has a huge collection of newspapers from all time periods and from all areas of the world, from small hamlets to large cities in the United States and in most other countries. Great resources for agriculture are contained in newspapers, from news stories on agriculture to crop reports to commodity sales to weather. Do not forget to include newspapers in your consideration of the topics. All CRL newspaper titles are available through our online catalog. Thank you very much. I hope I didn't go too fast.
Hi, this is Amy again. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the area studies collections, and I'll primarily just give you samples or examples from the collection of the type of agricultural resources you'll find in those collections. The area studies projects are collaborative efforts by research libraries throughout the world and CRL to acquire, preserve, and maintain collections of unique and rare or expensive material. Most focus on the reformatting of original material, including pamphlet collections, archives, and manuscripts, as well as government documents, newspapers, serials, and monographs of scholarly value. And some of the programs actually purchase existing microfilm sets, particularly large, expensive ones. This material can be rich. It can be a rich source of agricultural-related information, particularly in the government documents and the newspapers. And I have a few examples from those. The first is from the Brazilian government document digitization project. All of these are cataloged and individually digitized and available through the catalog. They cover a period of 1821 to 1993. There are also the next slide is the Ministerial reports of Latin America. Again, similar sort of administrative or technical information. We also have the India land settlement reports. And we also have, this is from the guide to the collection because the collection hasn't been digitized yet, but from the Kenya National Archives microfilm. And I found these descriptions particularly rich in agricultural-related material. And finally, we have a sample of a manuscript collection. So these are the types of materials you'll find in the area studies collections. These aren't necessarily cataloged under archives. All of these are just taken from within the documents or within the microfilm themselves. So this really this may be the type of material that's more of interest to the historian or the social scientist that we originally mentioned as becoming more interested in the agricultural material. The area studies projects I think have been, those are projects that are sort of CRL supports them administratively and in other ways, but they are independently governed from CRL itself. And so they've become an important model, I think, of the way CRL is going from its sort of original model of off-site storage to beginning in collecting areas that would support members' own collecting. And even though the first of these projects was begun in the 60s, since then we have realized how important this work, this collaborative work has been. And I think it has really informed the way we look at the print archiving by domain project. The print archiving by domain project is an IMLS-funded grant to develop a collaborative effort to archive by domain, and we chose two areas, law and agriculture, and part of the reason for choosing those two areas was that significant work had already been done in that area, and there were significant collaborative efforts or group efforts to preserve that information. So it felt like that was a good starting point. That we weren't building something from scratch, but that we were already working with a community that was very committed to the preservation of the material. The project goals are here. They're to plan and sustain the consensus-based cooperative archiving of primary serial collections in the field of agriculture, and to expand electronic access to digital and print resources. And I think these goals are important, and in part they show they have been developed actually after the grant was written. The first one, to plan and sustain the consensus-based, really was part of the original grant proposal, but it was in the work of the project of this past year and talking with the community that we realized that electronic access was really key to the success of the print archiving, and so it has now become one of the primary goals. So the scope of the project are these four groups of material: the material that was covered in the USAIN microfilming program, CHLA and the Hearth collections, other agricultural journals, and the agricultural extension services and experimental station material. And this last one is another point to make, that this really came out of conversation with community members, just in understanding how important this material was to them, and how important it is to include in any collaborative effort. And so we know that because these groups are so large, that we will have to establish priorities within these groups, but we believe that there are resources to address at least some of each of these groups. The project outcomes are listed here to specify realistic long-term archiving commitments, and I think the real key word here is realistic. We know that there are just sort of no end of things one can wish for in terms of archiving, but in order to achieve the success we want, we know that we have to be realistic. And most of these outcomes really require decisions by the participants. We know that we can help provide information about registering the holdings and provide a means to do that, but agreeing on what kind of sharing services to offer or acceptable preservation conditions really need to come from the community, that this really is a joint effort, and that our strengths do come from talking about the registering of the holdings, and we anticipate the other outcomes as really coming from the community. And in terms of our activities to date, we have spent a great deal of time since the beginning of the project trying to understand the material in our scope, and in talking with the members of AGNIC and USANE to decide where to begin, and specifically what type of resources and incentives were needed to encourage participation in the project. It's been very important to us to communicate that this is not a project that CRL is imposing on the community, but one that we want to understand what we can bring to the community, and what each participant from the community can bring to the project. We attended the USANE conference in April, and the outcome of the meeting there was really key. I think it was a turning point in the project in terms of really moving forward and in a tangible way to achieve our goals. And this was so the outcome of the meeting was the formation of a committee to work with CRL on the project. And we thought it best for the committee to work under the umbrella of the existing USANE Preservation Committee, but to ensure that the AGNIC members were also represented as well. The USANE and AGNIC come from two very different perspectives, I believe, but and there's a lot of overlap in the membership. But individually, these two groups have achieved so much that it was really very important that both of them were represented. And I think it is a great deal to AGNIC, and to their credit, that that our focus on bringing a digital aspect to this project became so important. There will be 5 regular members on the committee, and additional ex officio members. And these 5 members will work closely with interested participants in the community to ensure that the community is kept up to date. There were quite a few people. It was very gratifying to know that there were quite a few people after the USANE meeting that volunteered to participate in the project, and it was just impossible to include everyone on the committee and expect to go forward. But I think it's very possible to working with a small group that then stays in very close touch with very active participants to really build a very strong network. And that is key to what we're trying to do, is to move beyond the idea that this is just a project that will be completed in 2013, but we're really building a system or a program for preservation of this material. And in terms of the leadership of the committee, at this point, as we said, it was under the umbrella of the USANE Preservation Committee, and currently Amy Pastor of Penn State is the chair of the USANE Preservation Committee, and she has been working to pull the committee members together. CRL has developed a charge for the committee. Amy has reviewed it, and hopefully will bring it to the committee soon for their approval. And that will really get us started on our way. I think their endorsement is really key to the success and to the moving forward of this project. And one of the other thing that, although it has not been just for this project, one of the other activities that CRL has been undertaking in the past year, which I know will go a long way to supporting this project and other preservation projects, is the development of paper, or the Print Archives Preservation Registry. CRL has been working with the California Digital Library to develop a registry which will include a database of holdings that have been archived, and information about the condition of the holdings and the completeness of the holdings, and allow you to download reports or spreadsheets of those holdings so that you can then, compare them to your own or manipulate them in any way that you need. And it will also have information about the archiving initiatives themselves. So I know this will be, I think this will really result in, kind of a final step for any of the print preservation work that comes out of this project. I think disclosing the metadata about the holdings and the initiatives will be key to expanding, continuing to expand the effort. In terms of the committee's goals, we know that we have to develop priorities within the focus areas. As I said before, those focus areas are quite broad, and we know that we can't address everything in those areas. So we really do need to narrow them down, and we depend on the committee to be in touch with the community to know where to start. We know that we need consensus on requirements for archiving materials. And I think the consensus does not mean that everyone has to do exactly the same thing. We expect that there will be a range of abilities or resources that institutions will have to apply to the archiving of material. So it's really a consensus about that range. What is an acceptable range? Or if we disclose that this institution is able to put these kind of resources, is that acceptable to have this number of copies, or do we know? They're just really points to sort of begin the conversation. We know that we need standards for expression of holdings, and I think this will be an area that CRL will be able to really help the community. We have, in working with our paper registry or database, we have done quite a bit of work in reviewing the guidelines and the recommendations of use for the 583, the Preservation Action Note, and feel that we have a good understanding of it, some questions, some things we'd like to see expanded, but I think it has this is something that we will bring to the table and be able to help with. We also have been in touch with the Library of Congress and have been talking about running sort of a pilot project for retrospectively adding or creating ISSNs for titles, which I think could be a really key data point for print archives in the future. So I think this is really this one, in terms of the goals. We know that there are standards we need to set, and this is one where I see CRL as a major participant in the fulfillment of this goal. We also know that we need options for terms of service. Not everyone will be able to provide the same level of service that all institutions can, and we know that we will need the criteria and requirements for digitization projects. And this is an area that the National Agricultural Library has done quite a bit of work in. And I anticipate that any recommendations or that the committee comes up will most likely be based on the federal agency's digitization guidelines, which I believe has been endorsed in past digitization projects funded by NAL. So in terms of our next steps for the project, they really mirror the committee's goals, which is great, because then that means we will achieve our goals. But so we and I think that these are very doable. I think one of and I think that has been very important to this project is that we spent quite, and why we spent I think, so long talking to the community rather than just sort of moving forward quickly is that it was very important to really frame the project in something that could be accomplished and to move from there. And in terms of, I think one thing I should mention that I think I probably failed to mention in the previous slides was in terms of the undertaking digitization projects. This is another area that CRL intends to support the community in the preservation efforts. And this is something that came out of discussions with AGNIC leadership and NAL leadership, that how important it was to undertake these digitization projects, but that what we really need to do them is funds. And CRL will be supporting the digitization of some of these preservation projects, and we will be working with sort of an existing system that NAL has established, and more information about that will I'm sure be coming through the committee. And the committee has told me that they will publicize, or not publicize, but they will keep everyone informed through the listservs, both the USANE and the AGNIC listservs. So, when all the details are finalized for going forward with the funding of those digitization projects, we will certainly let you know what you can do to be involved or to apply for those funds. And so that sort of wraps up my update about the IMLS grant. For more information, please visit our website, or feel free to contact me, or in terms of the collection, Patricia Finney. Thanks very much.
We'd like to open up the session now to any questions and answers. If anyone has a question they would like to submit through the online chat, you have Amy and Pat sitting right here, so it's a great opportunity. Prasad, if we can go back to the website really quick, I did just want to point out, go to the front page. Our new, Patricia mentioned this, and I just wanted to highlight it, that it's the new issue of our focus on global resources. It's right on our front page there, see in the lower left-hand corner, is all about agriculture resources. You can click on that. So there's the census article that Patricia mentioned, APCRL. She also wrote an article about landscape architecture and the rural cemetery movement. There's more on the IMLS grant, so I just wanted to point you all to that resource for more on agriculture. Also, if we could scroll up a little bit under collections, under our collections, you see a list where there's our topic guides. We soon will have an updated topic guide on agriculture. It's not available just yet, but the topic guides are a great resource to find out more about our collections and other resources available. So look for the agriculture topic guide joining this list very soon. So we did get some questions on the registration form from some of our registrants that we can address until some come through the chat. I thought what was really gratifying, a few institutions asked Amy how they can join this effort or contribute to these digitization projects.
I think at this point, in terms of the digitization projects, I think the best thing to do is to wait until there's a notification that that the process can begin for applying for the funds. In terms of getting involved in the preservation effort itself, I think it's best at this point to work through the committee or with the committee, and I think contacting me or Amy Pastor is probably, maybe you should contact me, and I can send them all to any inquiries to Amy. I think that's the best way. I think once the committee members are announced, certainly that's another that's another avenue for talking with them directly.
Hi there, this is Pat back again. There was a question presented about resources, possible resources for undergraduate education and research. And I've thought about this for 2 minutes, and the answer that I have is primarily historical materials in many different areas, but the ones I wanted to mention were irrigation, horticulture, landscape gardening, landscape architecture, parks, pests and diseases, forestry. Now, we didn't talk about forestry. We have a large collection of legacy cereals in forestry. There was a huge deposit of forestry cereals that came into this collection during the time period that I was here. I have been here, and it is heavily used. Forestry is an excellent area. Livestock, brand books. We have incredible numbers of cattle, pig, horse brand books, and I think they're brand books. And that would be great topics for research. Bee culture, veterinary medicine, fisheries, hunting, sports, and wildlife management. All of those areas are covered within this collection. The second part of this question asks for resources for student agricultural gardening groups. Well, unless you're doing heirloom gardening, I'm not sure this is quite the collection for that. Historical heirloom gardening, absolutely. But I think modern gardening guides, that type of thing, is not going to be contained in the cereal collection. I hope that answered your question.
Sure. I guess we should mention in terms of requesting the material, and in terms of we do sort of have unlimited loan policies. I think you can keep the material as long as you need, and we offer digital delivery of material from complete monographs to, even in some cases, large amounts of large numbers of journal issues. In terms of the large amount of material, we do need to work with you to to be able to accomplish it over a period of time, and we can't deliver it right away, but all of the material is available digitally, or will be, after your request.
Pat, was veterinary medicine on your list?
Yes, veterinary medicine was on my list, and it's very strong holdings, especially from Russia. In those Russian cereals, the veterinary medicine is, and in some of the PL480, a good old PL480, where we're still talking about it. But there are several Russian veterinary medicine journals which get used constantly.
Our chat box is still open. You could send the question directly to the presenters. You don't have to even say where you're from. Your question will be totally private, but it's just a good opportunity to ask about these resources from our experts here in the room.
Should we talk about
something? There was a question about how this preservation project overlaps with West or some of the existing projects. And one of the, I guess one sort of point at which the various projects will intersect is through paper. The Print Archives Preservation Registry. I have put a sample of records for the CHLA collection into paper, just to have a better understanding of how the metadata would display. And there was some overlap with that collection and West Holdings. So I think, whether or not, another archives, whether or not another archive program will influence whether or not you decide to preserve a title, I think is certainly open for discussion. But the fact that the registry will expose that information, I think is really key to how those projects intersect. Also, I think, honestly, I think that the print preservation of agricultural material by domain will have a longer life to it than some of the other projects that sort of, not that they have a finite group of material, but I think that they can achieve a significant amount in a short period of time, but and still meet their mission. But when you're working with a domain of material, you're constantly working to preserve more and more. So I think it has, in terms of its focus, I think it has a much longer view of it. There's another question about, sorry, please clarify what paper includes. Is it paper that has been digitized or will be? Paper, or the Print Archives Preservation Registry, actually includes metadata about print archives. So it includes information about the print holdings. For example, West was used as the test case for establishing the registry, and digitization is not part of their mission or their focus. It is the archiving of the print. So all of the metadata about your print holdings and their condition or completeness, as well as information about the initiative itself, are included. In terms of the CHLA material, and this is key to actually using the MARC 583 field, it allows for a variety of actions, really, including digitization and OCR and any number of actions that have been taken to preserve the content or the artifact itself. So the information in paper about the CHLA titles that I included does include information about the digital as well, but the primary metadata is describing the print.
And last call for any other questions out there. While we're waiting, I'd like to mention, this is Gwen again, webinars that we have coming up this year. Next month, August 15th, we have one featuring Mary Wilkie, who is our outreach services and membership coordinator, or member services coordinator, I'm sorry, about purchase and licensing programs. That's like our purchase proposal, demand purchase, and all of our new electronic resource offers. So it'll be a good way if you've ever wondered how to become a part of those programs, submit collections that you would want to see purchased or vote on them. This is a great opportunity. Mary's going to go through all of those on August 15th. Another great overview is our CRL Collections and Services webinar. We run this twice a year, and the next time is in October. I'd like to kick off the school year with a nice refresher on how to access CRL collections, the services we can offer you in ways that you can take best advantage of your membership. And in October, we will also be featuring a webinar on legal primary sources, which I believe that will be the theme for the fall focus issue as well. We do try to tie all these themes together. We're so glad that you could join us today. What would really help us out is some feedback. We have a really easy survey on SurveyMonkey. The link is there, and we're going to put it in the chat window for you if you just take a few moments to fill it out. Comments are great. Any feedback you have about today's presentation would be really helpful. If you would like to share today's presentation with colleagues, or you want a refresher, all of our webinars are recorded and are available on our YouTube channel. There's actually a wealth of information there. You can look at our old previous webinars, presentations from our annual meeting. We even have a new short video on ILL services starring Kevin and Access Services, so you can check that out as well. Our website, of course, is always available to you. We also have an online email newsletter that comes out, CRL Connect, every 2 or 3 weeks. We encourage you to sign up for it so you can find out about these kind of events and any kind of news going on at CRL. We're also on Facebook, and we recently joined Twitter, so please like us and follow us and keep in touch with us through the social media. We really appreciate it. So it looks like that's all for now. Thank you again, and have a wonderful afternoon.